Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Liz, and in today's video I'm really excited because I have some really fun DIYs for you. I have 8 sweater weather type DIYs for fall. I don't know about you, but fall just is like cozy and comfy to me. That's the kind of vibe that I like going for when I'm decorating for fall. I think of sweaters and candles and everything like that. So I decided to do kind of a little sweater weather theme. That is such a tongue twister. So I'm going to show you guys how you can decorate your home with a sweater weather theme. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. For this DIY, I took one of these pumpkin wreath forms. I actually picked this one up at Hobby Lobby. I know that you can get them at the Dollar Tree, at least last year. They had them out, but I'm assuming if they had them last year, they'll have them this year. So whether you get them from the Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby, pick one of these up and then pick out your favorite yarn. I just grabbed this chunkier yarn that I got, I think from Joann's, and all I'm going to do is tie a knot right at the base of the stem of the pumpkin, and now I'm going to wrap that yarn just around and around and around until I get all the way around the pumpkin. I'm not going to do the middle yet, I'm just going to do the outside. Now, one thing that did help me was to cut off a chunk of the yarn rather than trying to fit, the whole skein of yarn through those wires. So just cut off a little bit and just wrap it around, and then when you get done with that, you can hot glue it and then start the next section. And now what I'm going to do for the middle section, it's kind of hard to explain, so hopefully you can understand what I'm doing. I'm just going to start off by hot gluing at the bottom of the pumpkin on one side. So where that first wire goes down through the middle, I'm just going to hot glue it around that. And then I'm going to wrap my yarn around the bottom, over the top, and back to the bottom. And then I'm going to bring my yarn around the bottom of the next wire, over the top, and back around the bottom. And I'm just going to do that over and over and over again. So I'll bring it around to the next wire, around the bottom, over the top, and then back around to the bottom. And I just tried to hold my yarn as tight as I could because I wanted everything to be nice and taut, make sure that everything was nice and tight. And then when I got to the end, when you're going to overlap to the side of the pumpkin, I did the same thing on that last wire throughout the middle. I went around underneath to the bottom and then wrapped around the top, brought my yarn back around, and then I would go over the side. So over the top of the side, bring that down, and then I would just wrap it around the next wire again and then start my pattern over. So wrap it underneath, over the top, back down, and then just do this all the way till you get to the very top of the pumpkin. So this is a bit of a, this is a movie kind of craft, if you will. This did take me a good couple hours to do, but this is the perfect kind of craft to do when you have a good movie you want to watch, or if you got a good audiobook that you want to listen to, something to keep you preoccupied. I know I love doing my fast crafts, but honestly, it's kind of relaxing having a craft that you don't have to put too much thought into. You don't have to, think a whole lot. You can kind of just mindlessly do it and watch a show. It's very relaxing, pretty therapeutic. So I just kept doing this over and over and over until I got to the very top. Now, when I got to the top, when I'm wrapping it around those end pieces, they didn't want to stay. So I had to take some hot glue to get those side pieces to stay when I was wrapping it around. And it just was looking a little bit sparse and I couldn't get it exactly the way that I wanted it to. So I decided to just finish it off. You can see how there are some gaps at the top. So what I ended up doing was just taking some hot glue and yarn and kind of just filling those pieces in by hot gluing them to the back. And then I'm also going to be adding a bow to this, so it really wasn't a big deal if it wasn't super full. So I just went through and kind of filled in with extra yarn where I thought that I needed to. And then I'm going to take some of this ribbon that I got from Michael's, I believe, and I just thought this was really cute. So I'm just going to take it in 2 loops and I'm just going to tie it in a knot. And since the front and back are the same, this works perfectly. So I don't have to worry about twisting my ribbon in any sort of way to get the front to show. So I just mess with the loops until I get it the size that I want and cut that off. And then I'm also going to take some raffia and kind of start folding it in on each other on one end and then on the other, kind of like you would do a cord or a vacuum cord maybe. And then I'm going to take an extra piece of raffia and I'm just going to tie that around the middle. So I have this cute little raffia bow and I'm going to hot glue this down first. And I'm just going to hot glue that right at the base of the pumpkin stem. And then I'm going to take my bow and I'm going to hot glue that down right on top of the raffia. And then I'm just going to hot glue my tails down to the pumpkin where I want them to be. I want them to be kind of fluffed up in certain places. So I'm just going to hot glue them down where I see fit, where I think it'll look pretty. And then I ended up taking some of this wired berries that I have and I just wrapped it around my finger to make it into a coil. And then I just hot glued that right down underneath the bow. And I just did that 2 times, one on each side. And that's it. I think this is so stinking cute. This piece right here is what kind of inspired the sweater weather DIYs. I just thought this one was absolutely adorable. So I decided to go on with the theme. So here is how my first DIY turned out. Before we get started on our next DIY, if you don't know, I make and sell woodcraft kits. I just launched my fall DIYs a couple weeks ago. I will have it linked in my description box for you guys to check out. For this one, I grabbed this pumpkin cutout from Michael's. It was $7.99, but their Halloween and fall stuff is 30% off right now. So I picked that up, and then I also went to my local Goodwill, found this sweater for $3.99. They were also having a sale that day where I got an extra 20% off that. So I'm just going to take my pumpkin and I'm going to trace it on top of my sweater. And I just tried to place it where I felt like it was going to look the best, where I had the prettiest pattern. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut that pattern out of the sweater. And then after I do that, I'm going to lay my sweater piece on top of my pumpkin. And now I want the sides of the pumpkin to show. I want that wood to be seen. So I don't want the sweater to fully cover my pumpkin. I just want it to be a tad bit smaller. So I just took my scissors and went around all the edges and kind of cut off where I thought needed it and tried to shape it into, you know, a better shape than what it was until I got it the way that I liked it. Once I had it all cut off, I took my gel super glue and just super glued this down. I was debating on what kind of glue would work best for this. I had a spray adhesive that did not work at all. So in the end, I just went with some super glue. I didn't want to do hot glue because I didn't want those bumps to be underneath it. You probably know what I'm talking about. So super glue is what worked best for me in this situation. And then I had these table accent pieces that I picked up from Target Dollar Spot last year, and I found this one that said Hello Fall, and I thought this would be perfect. I'm just going to super glue this right to the side of my pumpkin. And then I found these copper pins at Hobby Lobby, and I just thought that these were so cute, and I thought that they would look really pretty. And these were actually really easy to put on here, so I just added one to each end of the Hello Fall word sign. And I just pushed it right in there. They just went right on in. Not hard at all, and that's all you gotta do for this DIY. I think this one turned out so pretty, and it's perfect for my cozy fall decor. For this one, I'm going to pick up this big chunky yarn. You can get this from Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, anywhere. And I don't know about you, but I love the big chunky blankets, but they are super expensive. And I wanted a mini one so that I could put it in some of my wicker baskets and decorate with it. And so I just thought that I could make one myself. So I followed Catherine from Do It on a Dime, her video that she has on making big chunky blankets like this. And I've knitted in the past, but by all means, I am not an experienced knitter. So it's all very still new to me. If I can do it, you can do it. So you don't need any tools but your hands and the yarn. I'm also going to link Catherine's video in my description box because she explains it way better than I'm going to be able to. If you want to learn how to do it, I'd highly recommend watching her video. So first, I am going to make a slip knot with my yarn just by making a loop and pulling that through. So I'm just going to start with this loop right here, and then all you're going to do is pull your yarn through and create another loop. And you are going to do this as many times as you want, depending on how long you want your blanket or, you know, just your little piece that you're going to use to decorate with. I did 11 loops. So each time I make a loop, I'm just going to take my yarn and then pull that yarn through the loop and make a new loop. So I just tried making sure that all my loops were about the same size. And again, I'm just going to keep making those loops until I get 11 loops. Now, when you get to the end, you want to make sure that you make one more loop than you want your blanket long. So I made 11 loops. I'm going to make a 12th loop, and that will start the next line of my blanket. Once I have that 12th loop through, I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to start pulling it through those other loops at the top. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to take my yarn and pull it through that loop that we already made up at the top. And I'm going to make sure that those loops are all the same size. So again, I'm just pulling my yarn through that loop and making sure that that loop is the same size as the other loops that I've made. Once you get these 2 rows done, the rest is really easy. So once you have all of these loops finished, at the end, make sure that you do a second loop through your last loop to make sure that you always have the same number of loops. So again, since I created 11 loops to begin with, I want to make sure that each time I'm creating my loops, I have 11 loops in each row. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, I would highly recommend watching Catherine's video. She explained it so much better. So now that I have all that done, for the rest of this, all you're going to do is pull your yarn through those loops that you already have created and make more loops. That's what you're going to do each time. So just take your yarn, pull it through, make a loop over and over and over again until you have the size of blanket that you want. I used almost the entire skein of this yarn, It had a little bit left, and in fact I probably could have done another line or two, but I wanted to play it safe and make sure that I didn't run out. So I'm just going to keep doing this until my yarn is almost used up. If I can do this with the baby sitting in front of me trying to play with it, I promise you can do this. So to cast off and finish off the blanket, what you're going to do is take your first 2 loops. You're going to take the second loop in your line, put it through the first loop, and then pull that second loop through. Now you're going to take your third loop in the line, and you're going to take your yarn, you're going to make another loop. Now you're going to take that loop that you just made, put it through that second loop in the line, and pull your third loop through. And you're just going to follow this through the entire line until you get to the very end. So you'll make another loop, and you'll take that, put it through your first loop there, pull that loop over, and then do the same thing. Now when you get to the very end, you're going to do the exact same thing. You're just going to pull your loop through, and then you're going to take your yarn and you're just going to tie a simple knot, and you can take the excess yarn that you have and just kind of weave it through your blanket. And that's it. That's all you got to do for this one. And I think this is so cute in a basket, a wicker basket with pumpkins and leaves on top of it. I just think it looks so cozy to me. So again, I will have Catherine's video linked in my description box if you want a more in-depth tutorial on it, on how to make this type of blanket. For this DIY, I'm going to take my COUTURE transfers. I love these ones. Look at how many fun little pumpkin pieces there are on here, all the pumpkin patterns. I loved this one because it reminded me of a sweater. So I'm going to cut that out and I'm going to fuzz it a ton of times over and over again so that it is not too sticky on my wood. So I got this wood tag from Joann's. It was only a couple dollars, and I'm going to line up my pumpkin transfer on this so that there are no curves showing, because I just want this at the bottom of the tag. I don't want it to actually look like a pumpkin. So I'm just going to put that on there so that there will be no curves onto my tag. And then I'm also going to take some washi tape that I also fuzzed multiple times so that it wasn't too sticky on top of my transfer. And I'm going to lay that down so that there's a nice straight line across the top. And then I'm going to take this really beautiful sparkly yellow. I just think this is so pretty. And I'm going to take my squeegee and I'm just going to put that on there with the littlest amount of chalk paste. It takes hardly any at all. This is going to last me a super long time. If you guys are ever interested in COUTURE, I always have it linked in my description. But look how pretty this turns out. I just absolutely love it. And then I just cut out this sweater weather decal using my Cricut. I'm just going to use this as basically a stencil. I'm just going to put it onto my tag sign and then remove the transfer tape, and then I'm just gonna paint over it. So I'm gonna use my Dixie Belle paint in burlap. I have been getting a lot of questions about the Dixie Belle paint because I've been using it a lot lately. I absolutely love it. A lot of people ask me if I like it better than Waverly, and the answer is yes. I only have to do one coat the majority of the time with this paint. I just think it looks absolutely gorgeous, and the coverage on it is pretty amazing. So again, I always have Dixie Belle and COUTURE linked in my description box. You can always find those links down there if you're ever interested. I just personally love them. I just got a whole ton of different colors in the mail. I bought a lot of it and I am really excited to keep using them. Look out in the future for Dixie Belle giveaways. They will be coming soon. And yeah, I'm just really excited for Dixie Belle. I think that they have really great paints and I was pleasantly surprised when I first tried them out. So I just gave my sign one good coat, and then I'm just going to remove the vinyl that I had laid down, and here you can see the sweater weather words popping through. And then I'm going to take the twine that was on there originally, I'm just going to tie that back on there, and then I cut up a little piece of that sweater that we used with the first DIY with this sweater, and I just cut a little piece off. I'm going to tie a knot around the middle where the paint meets the COUTURE paint, and tie a knot, cut off the excess sweater piece, and that's it for this DIY. For this one, I took my Cricut and I cut out this piece here, this yellow buffalo check piece that you can see. I just cut out a rectangle to the size of a picture frame, and then I cut out a leaf in the middle. So I'm going to take the glass that came in the picture frame that I'm using, and I'm just going to line it up onto my sweater. Now I want to make sure that where I'm cutting is going to line up with where my leaf is, because the sweater is going to peek through the cardstock, which I think is really cute, and that cardstock also came from a pack that I got from Michael's. So I'm just going to trace around the glass on my sweater, and I'm just going to cut around where I marked. You don't have to be super precise because you're not going to see all of it. You're just going to see the section where that leaf is. So I'm going to take this frame that I got from Goodwill. I got it for $2.49, and I just thought that this was really pretty and would work really great for fall. I'm just going to insert my glass, insert my cardstock, and then put my sweater in the back, and then just close everything on up. And I just think this is so cute. I love the way it looks. I was feeling like it was missing a little bit of something though, so I took some of my Sola wood flowers and I just hot glued those to the side. I haven't used these in a project in a really long time, and I just thought that this would work perfect for this. So I will have Sola flowers linked down below if you ever want to check them out. They are some of my favorite flowers to craft with. I think that they just made the perfect finishing touch, and here's how my sweater leaf picture turned out. So for this DIY, I'm going to take this glass piece that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take the sleeve of that same sweater that I've been using, and I'm just going to pull that up over it. And I'm just going to keep pulling until I have as much of the sweater that I want, and then I'll just cut off the excess at the bottom. Now I'm just going to trim up the bottom and super glue it to the bottom of my glass, or my face, I guess you could call it. And then I'm going to add some more super glue to the inside of it, and I'm going to fold down that sleeve portion and stick that to the inside. And then I am going to cut up another piece and cut that piece down, and I'm going to have that wrap around my vase, or my candle holder is what I'm going to call it. I took some leaves that I had from a pick from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to put that on the front, and then I'm just going to tie the sweater piece around the front of that, do a double knot, cut off the excess, and then I just added a tea light from Dollar Tree. Obviously, don't put a real candle in here. do a fake candle. And that's it for this one. Now, I couldn't do a sweater weather theme without some sweater pumpkins, so I'm going to take a foam pumpkin that I got last year from the Dollar Tree. I had just painted it white, and then I'm going to take a sleeve from a sweater that I got from Goodwill, and I'm just going to insert the pumpkin at the biggest part of the sleeve where the shoulder would be rather than where the wrist would be, so that it would actually go on it a little better. And I'm going to hot glue the bottom of the sweater to the bottom of the pumpkin. And then I'm just going to cut off the excess sweater at the top, and then I'm going to add some hot glue where I cut that hole at the top of the pumpkin, and I'm just going to insert the sweater into there, push it all into that hole, and then I grabbed one of these branches that you can get in a pack from the Dollar Tree, added some hot glue, added some leaves, again from the same pick that I got from Hobby Lobby, onto my pumpkin. And then I'm just going to make a raffia bow to add to my pumpkin just by putting multiple strands of raffia together and wrapping it around my index finger and my thumb, and then just taking an excess piece of raffia through the middle, tying a double knot, and then you have yourself a super cute bow. I just hot glued that to the top part of my pumpkin, and that's it. You can do these in so many different colors and so many different sweater patterns or knit patterns that you have. I just think that the sweater pumpkins are so stinking cute. You could also add some twine and wrap it around to really define the ridges of the pumpkin, which I think would be absolutely beautiful. But this is how mine turned out, and I'm absolutely loving it. Now, this next DIY was inspired by a post that I saw on Pinterest. I'll link that original post in my description box, but they just used some hot glue on some pumpkins to create some sweater details, sweater patterns, and this was my attempt at doing it. It didn't turn out exactly like how I imagined that it would, but I wanted to keep this in here to give you guys, you know, that inspiration to try it yourself, and hopefully yours will turn out much better than mine did. But I just thought that this was still too fun not to share. So I'm just going to go through and add some sweater patterns onto my pumpkin with just a pencil, you know, any kind of knitting pattern that you think would look cute. Just add that to your pumpkin. I got these pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and I like the pumpkins with the bigger, thicker ridges. It's easier to do this versus ones that have a lot of tiny ridges. And then once I have everything drawn on there, I just take a detailed hot glue gun. This one is by Surebonder. I made sure not to use my bigger hot glue gun that has a lot of glue come out all at once. The detailed ones is definitely the way to go for this kind of project. And I just went over all of my lines that I just drew on there. And then for this pattern right here, I just wanted it to look like a bunch of little dots. So I would just squeeze out a little bit and then drag it down and squeeze out and drag it down, just so that they looked like dots versus just, you know, one line of hot glue. And then in between each of the ridges, I also went through and added dots as well. Just by doing the exact same thing, just squeezing out a little bit of hot glue and then dragging it down, squeezing out a little bit, dragging it down. Same process, pretty easy. So this is what your pumpkin is going to look like when you've got your hot glue all added to it. I also did this on another flat pumpkin from the Dollar Tree, and then I took them outside and spray painted them in the Heirloom White by Rust-Oleum, and then this Pale Sage by Krylon. So here they are after about 2 coats. I am going to paint the stems in an apple barrel, just kind of, you know, a neutral gray brown. I cannot remember the name of the paint, but any color will do. I just painted each of the stems this color, gave it about 2 coats, and that's it for this one. Still think it turned out pretty cool, even though if it wasn't exactly how I imagined it, but I still think they're cute. And that's it for today's video. Let me know what your favorite project was in the comments down below. Do you guys like the kind of sweatery theme, or what are some of your favorite ways to decorate for fall? Do you guys go for a theme? Is there any kind of, you know, theme to your decorations? Don't forget to subscribe before you guys leave. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.